What's up, everybody? It's Shannon and Shirley.
Hey, how you doing, guys?
The Comeback Kids.
Hope you had a great week.
The Comeback Kids. Remember that?
I do remember that.
I'm Shannon, by the way, for those of you who might not know.
Right.
You might be trying to figure out who's Shannon and who's right. Shirley. You know? So, what's up, man? How you doing?
I'm doing well. I'm doing well. I was just talking to somebody, they asked me how I was doing, and I was like, overall, I'm doing good. I'm missing my mother something fierce, and dealing with my health, trying to lose some weight. So that's my truth.
Can we go there a little bit?
You want to go there?
I just want to ask you if it's.
Yeah, I brought it up. So,
what do you miss most about Mommy?
Oh, it's so crazy because like 2 years ago, it's like she knew this time was coming where she wouldn't be here, and she made it known that she wanted to talk every day.
Yes.
Every day.
I remember you used to be like,
and I'm like,
I'm gonna call my mama. I'm gonna call my mama.
And I'm not a phone person, right, guys? Love my mom, love my friends, love everybody, but I'm not a phone person for real. I mean, maybe it's because I'm on the phone all the time, pouring into people, and so it just, drains me. But I was like, dang, every day. But now it's like,
man, every day.
Like, I wish I could have every day, So just hearing her wisdom, her love, I mean, she was so wise. Oh my gosh. That was a wise woman. So
she was very wise. She's very I miss you saying that. It was like a thing.
Gotta call mommy.
Right.
Yeah, because I always did it. I always because my brother talks to her first thing in the morning every week. He's done that for like 30 years.
Right.
And my sister every day, multiple times during the day.
Right.
And my other brother, for the most part every day. And so I said, I'll be the closer. Like I'll talk to her at night. Even though I really wasn't the closer because Cene talked to her multiple times during the day. And Cene even talked to her after I talked to her at 11 o'clock at night.
Right.
Right. But I was like, I'll be the closer, so I'll talk to her at night. And so that was the routine. I would get into bed and call Mommy.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So here, speaking about Mommy and Daddy, they were, I remember when I first met them, and like they made it a point to, at their ages, to really stay connected.
Oh yeah.
Like I can't say that I ever remember them being mad at each other. I can't say I remember witnessing any sort of emotional disconnection. And what I always remember, because you had a room, they kept your room to the left of their room, and then they had, their space. Right. And I remember when it was time, they went to their space. Yeah. And
listen,
we can't say the same thing. Because there were times, man. There were times, dude, when we were experiencing emotion, more so me than you. You wasn't giving up your bed.
Yeah, I'm not getting on the couch, Doc. I'm good. I can turn my back to you.
You were not.
No.
But me, on the other hand.
Oh yeah.
When I'm emotionally disconnected from you, it's really, really weird, and it's obvious.
Oh, it's very obvious. Yes.
I don't want to be around you.
No.
I don't want to be around Shirley.
Nah.
Listen, I don't even want to eat Shirley's food.
Yeah, that's true.
I don't want to eat her food.
Yeah.
And it gets, it really, I remember a point in time where I just spent a season on the couch. Yeah. A whole season. And it was like, are you ever going to get up and go back to your to your bed? And I remember there was a point in time I was like, I ain't sleeping on no couch.
Right.
I'm going to bed.
Right.
Right. But There was a time where I just did not want to be next to you. I didn't want an incidental turn to turn into you touching me.
I remember those days. Yeah, both of us was yes.
Trying, that avoiding,
yeah.
You trying to avoid, trying to not touch
right
in the bed, and we had a queen size then. So we really didn't have that much space.
Right.
So you're trying to turn over in your space.
Oh, man.
And, we were living in an apartment.
Hey, you ever did the jerk? Like you so close to the edge, you sleeping?
Oh, yeah, for real.
Like
if you almost fall off the bed, be so close on the edge, you'd be surprised how you can sleep.
Yes.
So close to the edge of something.
Ridiculous.
Simply because, somebody that is in your space, your sphere of influence, you just are not emotionally connected.
Simply because you don't know how to fix the problem. You're not using any tools to fix it. You're just going along with your emotions. I mean, that's right. It's not like those things couldn't have been resolved. We just chose to stay in the funk and not resolve them. It's crazy. It's crazy.
So I want to make sure this chat is on. Not that it should be, but
you want to ask the folk to.
Well, it said the chat was disabled for this live. So.
Oh wow! Okay.
So, but that's fine. We have a lot to discuss and a lot to share with the people. You is something I remember distinctly. How we talked about not wanting to come in the house, not wanting, not like me staying away from home, right? We talked about, and this concept of emotional connection is, I don't think people really understand how deep it is. And we continue to make the assumption that men don't have emotions. We have emotions equal to a woman. We discussed that before, but it presents itself differently, and we can't wear them on our sleeve because we have to protect and provide. Yeah. So we got to, have more of a balance or control over that stuff. But you got people. I was on the prayer line, and they were talking about how men were told for years, like, you don't cry. Don't show emotion. Shut up all that crying. But a little girl, she could cry and, tell mama what you need and tell daddy what's wrong and who did it to you and all that. But a boy, shut up all that crying, right? So then that takes us to, especially men, I believe, men are more apt to separate themselves when they are going through emotions, like an emotional state where they feel emotionally disconnected, when they feel like they're not being understood, right? I feel like that we have a tendency to just separate ourselves because we already feel like we're not understood. I was talking to a client this week, and he just flat out said the world don't care about men. And man, I was like, whoa. Now I disagreed with him, but I understood why he said what he said. Because there's this sense and feeling, jump in when you want. There's this sense and feeling that how we feel about things, where we stand on things, people just don't understand.
Yeah, and to your point, I think we both like disconnect in that way. We just, it looks different, right? I mean, of course, the obvious thing is going outside the marriage, but we just go to other things, right? We have escapisms. It could be TV, social media, shopping, your friends, reading books, church. Like, these are escapisms. These are the things that we run to fill the void, to help us feel good. But because it's temporary, we keep chasing things. And sometimes we'll add on because that's not enough, right? Going to church every week is just not enough. doing the sports is just not enough. Shopping is just not enough. And so we just amp it up little by little by little until we're just in this thing where it's just so dysfunctional and unhealthy, and we can have addictions, right? That's where addictions begin to be created and things of that nature. So it looks different for each of us, not just per sex, but individually. But it's there. We all have the tendency to go to something. And so it's really just important to understand, man, how do I connect with my spouse when there is such a huge gap? There is an obvious disconnection.
How did you, how did you process that when we were in those spaces? Like, if you don't mind being, I know you don't mind being candid and personal, but you know, what was it like in those, like, that's what I want to know more. Like, what was it like in those spaces and in those areas for you?
You know, unfortunately, right, a lot of times we have the idea of, we have the feeling of not being accepted, right, in our relationship. Our spouse is not accepting us, they're not hearing us, things of that nature. And so we have to change, right? And so it's a lot of times what I found, what happened to me and talking to our clients just regularly, just human beings, we're like, if I'm not accepted for who I am, I'll change where I am.
So say that again.
If I'm not accepted for who I am, I'll change where I am. Right? And that's the faulty thinking. Because there were things that you were sharing with me that I needed to change. And instead of me saying, okay, Shirley, this is who you are. You need to change this. I didn't want to do that. I took the easy route to feel good and change where I was. So I took my emotions from you to other things and other people. Right? And so that's how we get ourselves in trouble. We have this mindset of, well, I'm not going to change who I am. I'll just change where I am. And so we have to get to the point where we're willing to look at ourselves and change who we are. Right. And so that was my faulty thinking. That was my immaturity of feeling like you were putting too much pressure on me. But it was only pressure because I was not listening.
Wow.
It wasn't pressure because you're just putting pressure on me. I didn't want to hear where I was going wrong. I didn't want to hear the things that I was doing wrong. I didn't want to hear how I was not showing up as a wife that I thought I was. I did not want to hear that. And so what happened was I internalized that as pressure instead of an opportunity for me to grow into, hey, how can I meet Shannon's needs? What do I need to do?
Do you know it is a horrible feeling to feel like your needs are not relevant?
Oh, yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, I knew I wasn't the best husband in the world, but I just didn't know how to. I didn't know what, man, I was asking. Remember, I was asking Ray and Keisha, and I was asking them just like, what can I do? What can I say? Like, how can I, how can I be better? How can I do better? I felt our emotion, like in a chasm of emotional disconnection.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I just couldn't bridge it. And
well, I think one of the things is, right, so how do you bring that connection is we have to get out of our comfort zone. And that's having the tough conversation. I mean, we have had people ask us, man, how do I talk to my spouse about X, Y, and Z? Listen, on one hand, I get it, right? But on the other hand, I'm like, man, I have literally committed my life to you, given my body to you. And I can't talk to you about why are you misspending funds or why you're not pleasing me sexually or whatever the thing is. Like, how do we just do certain things, but then when it comes to just a simple thing of communication, we just can't do that.
Right.
Like, what is the fear? Right. So we have to get out of our comfort zones, and really understand what your fear is and having the tough conversations. That's the one thing that, we ran away from that. I definitely ran away from that. You actually, you didn't mind having the tough conversations. I'm not saying how you did it was productive, because it wasn't always productive, but you definitely wanted to have the tough conversations. Right. And so that was something that was challenging for me, to have the tough conversations. I didn't have the courage to get out of my comfort zone.
I think that a part of that is, as humans, we desire to control the narrative, or if not even the narrative, the outcomes. Like the outcomes, like if we cannot predict, of course, I'm a high C, right? So on the DISC model of human behavior, I'm a high C. So systems and weighing things and being in control and being very critical and being very calculating and we're researchers, and we have a desire to control the narrative so that we can predict the outcome, because the outcome is, to a D, the outcome is the outcome. To the I, the outcome really doesn't matter as long as you like me. And to an S, the outcome is like, did I do anything wrong? And how can I fix it? But C's, high C's, we want to dictate that narrative. We want to control outcomes. And so what we will do is we will either avoid those conversations, or we will bombard you with the conversations. Because there's many times that you was just like, oh my God, please, I just want to sleep.
For real.
Or
it was like torture. Listen, y'all.
Come on, man.
It was torture. So anybody out there with that type of personality that Shannon's talking about, you have to understand. See, you think that your spouse is just shutting down just because they don't care about you, or they don't want to hear what you have to say. 9 times out of 10, it is not that. It is because of what he just said. It is torture to have to be sitting up at 1, 2, 3 in the morning, continuing to be asked question after question after question after question after question. Like, it is just, wow, how did you do that? How did you even sit there all those hours and ask the questions?
Well, each question was designed to bring about some understanding. Like, I wasn't asking arbitrary questions in my mind.
No, you weren't.
Right? And
mercy.
Was it that bad? Was it torturous, honey? I'm so
torturous.
sorry.
Then don't let me fall asleep. Then you get upset that I'm falling asleep at 2 o'clock. And I'm like, what? The madness.
Like, we are having serious conversation. Like, this is serious. And you have the nerve, the audacity, because you're narcoleptic, to just fall asleep.
What can I say?
And that would just irk me. And I would feel so.
That's why timing is important in communication.
Timing is extremely important. And I was not savvy when it came to timing. And why did it always seem to be at an ungodly hour?
Ungodly hour. Ungodly hour. But with that,
I'm surprised you didn't cuss me all the way out. What the hell? Please.
I know I didn't, did I? Man, you got you a good one. You got you a good one, Negro.
Well,
listen, I did my
I got me a good one, and I'm crazy. So that combination works well together. It works well to be cussing me out. But yeah, so I digress.
But part of this emotional disconnection is, we talk about vulnerability, right? Which is the birthplace, really, of connection. People don't understand.
You be saying some deep shit, man.
What? I mean, it is.
Vulnerability is the birthplace of connection. That's crazy. Right? All right, go ahead.
But people don't understand. See, we create these narratives when things don't go the way we think they should go about the person and the situation. And most times people will not be vulnerable because their imperfections have been demonized. What, you understand?
Yes.
Which is what I did to you.
Yes.
Right? Your imperfections showed up and I did not know how to handle them. Like, okay, this is a challenge that Shannon has. How do we deal with it? How do we move forward? What do we do to alleviate the issue?
Right.
I took it personal. You're doing something to me. What you're doing is hurting me. What you're doing, I don't like. It's making me feel, right? Me. It's all about me.
Right.
And so what does that do? That causes you or whomever to not want to be vulnerable.
Right.
Because the vulnerability is literally being authentic to who you are, stating your heart, putting your heart out there on a platter.
Mm-hmm.
And saying, I am putting it out here and I am trusting you.
I'm trusting
to
you.
do the right thing with it.
Yeah.
And when the right thing is not done with it, I'm taking my baby and I'm putting it back and I'm putting a lock and key on there. And you can try to get in if you want.
Yeah, we don't even do that. What we do is we now put it in a vault. Put the vault, encase the vault in concrete and take that and place it in as deep in the Marianas Trench. I hope I said that right. Marianas Trench. That's supposed to be the deepest place on the ocean.
Oh, okay.
Then we put it there, and then we don't leave any clues to where it is.
Right.
So that vulnerability, we put ourselves on the platter. Remember, I did that early in our relationship. Remember, I was like, hey, I got this problem. I mean, I would just put it all out on a platter. I know you was like, what? Who is this guy?
Never experienced that before. I was like, yeah, I was. Yeah.
And I had never experienced it before up until that point. Wow. But when I said after my divorce, you were the next serious relationship I had. And I said after my divorce, I was just going to be honest.
Got you right.
And up front. And so I came to you with porn addiction. I came to you with bad credit, poor financial management. I came to you with it all.
Yeah.
And that was difficult for you to manage.
Yeah, it was.
And when you mismanaged it, I took, like you said, I took it off the table. And then, listen, I remember you doing a post recently. I forget what the name of the post was, but you were talking about how I shared my dreams with you. And initially you thought my dreams were crazy. And so you shut them down in your mind.
Oh, I wrote that in the book. Yeah.
But that was in a book. So I guess I read it when I was editing. Right. So I tried to share like these grandiose things with you. Yeah. And you, the book, shout out to Shirley Perry Austin, by the way, writing a most amazing book, Wife You, the ABCs of Winning His Heart. When I was editing it, it's so interesting. When I was editing the book, I learned more about you as a wife and how you think now.
Oh, wow.
Like that was a gift to me from God, because we could have sent that off to an editor and I would have never really dived as deep into it as I did. And because I dove, I saw that part and I was like, wow, she got that. Right. And so, but I shared my dreams with you. You know, I shared these feelings, these deep-seated, deeply entrenched things. Yeah. And it was difficult for you to handle. Yeah. But you were young, though. How old when we met? You were 23, 24?
23, yeah. And, I always say I'd never met, anyone like you. You were just deep. You were just a very deep cat. And I dreamed, but I never dreamed outside of something that I could do. Right. Even when, when I was young, I wanted to be a rapper. I wanted to move to New York City. I wanted to act. Those are things that I could do but some of the things that you were presenting to me, I was like, that ain't about to happen. Right. I just couldn't see it. Right. And that's why they say you have to be careful who you share your dreams with, because there's some dream killers out there. I am a reformed dream killer. I'm sorry. Oh God.
You murdered my dreams. You were a serial killer of my dreams because I was a dreamer.
And on the flip side, he was a dreamer, but not an executor.
So here I am dreaming. But listen, half of the battle in this vulnerability stage is really not seeing execution. Half of the battle is just listening and believing. Like, when the kid says, I want to be president of the United States one day, we don't a year later say, hey, you are not doing the things necessary to, we don't do that. Yeah. Right? Yeah. We listen and we encourage them, and, along the way, we maybe try to do things that help to guide them. But, killing those dreams, but I forgive you, baby.
Thank you, baby. So what are some practical tips to leave the people concerning emotional connection? What can they do now?
Well, empathy is once again talking to another coaching client. Him and his wife came to him with some very, very challenging things for him to consume, and she was tearful, and he found himself almost not caring. He was just very matter of fact and apathetic, and he listened, but for the most part, when he was describing how he responded to his wife, I was like, bro, you don't have any empathy at all. I said, you need to spend some time with God. And you all need to get that. If you need to get to the root of why you can't even empathize with your wife. And remember, there are 3 stages of empathy. There's this cognitive empathy that we just on some level we can understand. I can understand why you feel like that. Black Lives Matter, when all of that upheaval was going on during the pandemic. It was a blessing for people that not of color to be able to simply just look at what was going on and say, I could understand
I get why
they're out there and why they're upset.
Yeah, for sure.
Right? And then the next stage, right, is you move into a more emotional place where not only can you see why they're feeling the way they're feeling, but you begin to take on those feelings. They're angry, now you're angry.
Right.
Now you're upset.
Right.
They're sad, you're sad. They're hurting, you're hurting. They feel traumatized, you feel traumatized. Right? And then the next stage of empathy takes us to action. So you begin to feel how they feel. And because of that, you now take action. It moves you to do something. So there were people that began to see the Black Lives Matter movement and why it was important. They began then to feel some type of way and feel the hurt and the pain and the frustration and the anger, just using Black Lives Matter as an example, right? And then some of those people showed up in the demonstrations. Some of those people got arrested. Some of those people really put themselves in harm's way, not because they went through what we went through, not because they could really, from an experiential standpoint, understand, but from an empathetic standpoint, they could understand, and now they are doing something, right?
And that's the key. And that's why empathy is so important. Healing is going to come through empathy. It just is. Like when you just broke it down, action begins to take place.
Right.
It's a spirit.
Right.
Right. And so when we look at the opposite of empathy, you're mean, you're cold, you're dismissive. How is that drawing your spouse closer to you? How is that fixing anything? Right. So, it's that empathy piece. And then another piece that we have found is lacking in relationships is the gratitude piece. Excuse me, guys. Just, man, we nag and complain, and we can give a whole book on what's wrong with our spouse. But can we do that? Are we willing to do that? Because we can. Because listen, you married them, right? You married them for a reason. You saw amazing things in them that made you say, I want to spend not just a week, a month, a year, but my whole life with this person.
My whole life.
You understand? So there has to be some redeeming qualities about them. But when we do not show gratitude for those qualities, and those qualities will play out in how your spouse serves you, how they love you, how they take care of the home, how they take care of the children, right? Just going to work. I think you've been doing a lot of work, and I thank you for taking such good care of me. Like something just, that don't take nothing, right? It takes nothing. But for whatever reason, we give gratitude externally, and our spouse is in a drought. And our spouses are watching us at times thank and praise other people.
That is the worst.
That is the worst.
That is the worst, to see you trying and to see your spouse not only give gratitude, but other things, of course, but gratitude specifically, to your point. Give it to others, express the gratitude to others. But then when it comes to you, they can't. You bring them some water or something, or you do something that you don't necessarily have to do, or it might be a part of your job, but it's just.
That's key right there, babe. Let me say this. I have had so many women come to me wanting my perspective on that, because their husband is upset because they feel unappreciated about the things that they do. And they're saying, well, he's supposed to do that. Y'all, come on. Come on. Is he going to eat if you are in his life? Absolutely. Is he going to work if you're not in his life? Absolutely. But it makes it so much easier for him when he knows he's working for someone who appreciates it.
We have a friend who is engaged to be married. And he is the one that actually encouraged me to work as hard as I'm working now, right? To get back out there and use, my talents and gifts and abilities to bring more resources into the house. And so it's not that I was lazy, I was just not doing that, and, relying on our fixed income. And he said, I would move heaven and earth for her because she shows me gratitude. She thanks me for the hard work that I do. She notices, she expresses interest, but she expresses gratitude. And so as a result of her expressing that gratitude, this man is killing himself. You would think, to him, it's not killing himself. To him, it's doing his job. Right? But the fact that she doesn't take him doing his job for granted.
Exactly.
Now moves them. So now they have this give and give going on. He's doing his damnedest to be everything that he needs to be for her. And she's expressing this gratitude, and they have this momentum now that's propelling them forward as opposed to having them sitting stagnant.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
So the gratitude piece, I mean, we talk about that so often in our, you can see, we've sat in coaching sessions, y'all, and really had to sit back and think, like, do you even care that your spouse is doing this and that? Does it affect you in any way, shape, or form? And unfortunately, for a lot of people, it doesn't. They don't see it.
They don't see. They're reaping the benefits of it, and it really is going over their head that this isn't coming easy to your spouse, whatever this thing is, right? If we talk about going out to work, it's not. It's especially, I mean, whether you're working for yourself or not, but definitely when you are beholden to somebody else, that's not easy. You know what I'm saying? Like you're on somebody else's time. You have to you're a slave to somebody else's company and business, right? Even if you love what you do, it's still a thing that you're doing, not just for yourself.
Right.
You're out here collecting, and you're bringing everything you collected to the person.
Right.
And they just like, oh, that's what you're supposed to do.
Right.
Like, I mean, we just have to change our thinking. When we talk about loving someone for a lifetime, do what is productive. Do what will get the most out of your spouse, right? Have the hard conversations. Show empathy. Be vulnerable. And it's so many other tips that we can
another
give to
thing.
that.
I mean, another thing is I think that we have to do is be present, like mindfully present.
Mm-hmm.
Like I have to be present of your heartbeat.
Mm.
I have to be present of the air going in and out of your lungs. This speaks to gratitude, and so you put mindfulness and gratitude together because we really take for granted. I take for granted that that you're going to be here.
Mm.
My godbrother, his children went to bed when Trump got elected. His children went to bed expecting him to, take them to school in the morning.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Right.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And he woke up. Well, they woke up, and he had no life in him. Mm-hmm. And so, can you imagine what that did to them? Mm-hmm. And so we wake up. We've heard stories of a husband getting up or a wife getting up to go to work, and their spouse is still in the bed, and they like touch them, like, "Hey, honey, like you late."
Yep.
But they not late. Their life is gone.
Yeah, that's right.
And so we take for granted that we are going to be here with all this traveling I'm doing lately and all this work. We don't have the time, nor the emotional bandwidth to not appreciate each moment that we have. For sure. Each phone call. Yeah. Each FaceTime. Each when I'm home, because anything could happen to me out on the road. Anything could happen to you while I'm away. This house, I can't assume that the house is going to be here when I come back. But that's how we live our lives. Mm-hmm. And we don't have the presence of mind to really ingest that and then communicate how thankful we are.
Yeah, for sure.
So we got to be mindful. Mm-hmm.
And let me say this, because we have to get to the questions, but I definitely want to say this because one of the things that we deal with in our coaching practice and when we're talking to people are having challenges with meeting their spouse's needs based on what they think they deserve. One of the many reasons why there is an emotional disconnection is because once your spouse shows their imperfection consistently, we begin to pull back because we're like, you don't deserve it. Guys, you're not giving to your spouse or doing for your spouse or being what your spouse needs because it's what they deserve. You're doing it because it's who you are. It's what you want to present.
That's right. It's how you present yourself to the world.
You understand? I was talking to somebody, every day. Every day I remind people when I talk to them, we are seeking so much grace from God. Mm-hmm. Every day we seek grace from God. Every day we have to ask for repentance from something. Mm-hmm. Yet we will not extend a smidget of that grace to our spouse because they hurt me. They hurt me. Well, how often do you hurt Christ? How disobedient are you? What do you think Christ is saying to you about your behavior?
And the Bible says that when we sin, we crucify Christ afresh. We put him back on the cross.
We put him back on the cross.
Hey, I didn't write it. The book, it's in the book. I didn't write it.
Daily, we put Christ on the cross. And so that's why this empathy piece, it is so deep, y'all, because you being the best that you can be, it has nothing to do with your spouse. Mm-hmm. You being who God wants you to be, it has nothing. God is not going to come and say, Shirley, tell me what Shannon did to you. Girl, yup, that justifies your behavior. No, God is going to say, Shirley, how did you treat my son? And I might try to point the finger. He'd be like, I don't care about what Shannon, whatever Shannon did, that's between me and Shannon. I'm talking to you right now.
You don't never want God to be
you
like, I'm talking to you.
Listen.
I'm talking to you right now.
So, I just encourage you guys to really be intentional about your actions and really be in tune to what you're thinking and the perspectives that you have about your spouse and your spouse's behaviors. Because a lot of times we're taking them so personal, we can't actually see them for what they are. And they are people who are filled with pain and they're trying to manage life and they're not doing it right all the time. But the Bible says love covers a multitude of sins. Love can heal. If we stop giving this venomous behavior through mouth and action and deed to our spouse and begin to pour love into them, I guarantee you, if you're not married an evil person, you will begin to see change. And it will happen over time. It's not going to happen overnight. This is a game of long suffering. That's why we always say, marriage, there is no destination. It's not, oh, we have arrived. Nope.
Right.
We are continuing on this journey till death do us part.
All right, let's get some questions.
Questions. All right, guys, here we go.
Questions.
What do you do when you and your spouse are not on the best terms and one spouse wants to go to marriage counseling and the other just makes excuses like, just pray, we don't need counseling?
Well, we talked about this before. I'm almost willing to tell you unequivocally that's a Black couple. That's an African American couple, because we don't believe in that. If we got to go and talk to somebody about how we're feeling and all of that, then we just we prefer not to do that, because then that is an indication. When you go to a therapist, in the Black culture, when you go to a therapist, that's an indication that you're crazy. And nobody wants the moniker of being crazy on them.
Something's wrong with
you. Something's wrong with you up in your brain. So there's a negative connotation associated with that. And as a result, we don't want that. So I think that's really, now what the spouse is saying about, not the relationship doesn't need prayer, but she, sounds like it was the wife talking, she needs to pray for him, that God will bring to him an understanding of their need for coaching. Because you can't, as once again, Philip Austin, my father said, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink.
You can't make them do anything.
You can't force anyone to do anything. And so you have to remain, the Bible talks about remaining sober and vigilant. You have to be singleness of purpose. And you have to decide, hey, this is who I'm going to be. This is how I'm going to be. And this is, I'm going to start counseling.
That's what I was about to say.
And then when you start, your spouse will start seeing results, or you will share, hey, but this is the thing. This is a cheat code to that. The cheat code to you going to counseling is not you coming from counseling pointing out what's wrong with them. The cheat code to that is you going to counseling and coming home and sharing your faults, your inconsistencies, your shortcomings, and what you're learning from that, and then them seeing you make a change in those areas.
Listen, y'all, for real. We, so many times, couples will come to us and then they'll come back on the next session and talk about how their spouse pointed out everything that they were doing wrong. That is not the way to do it. That's not the point of going to counseling. The point is to look at yourself. So, I encourage the young lady to, like Shannon said, you go ahead and you do the work. You do the work. You become who it is that you want to be. like I said earlier, this is outside of your spouse. Whatever your spouse does or does not do, that's on them.
And let me say this
but
too.
set the example.
You become who you want to be, and you become who you want to see.
Yes.
Like those things that you desire from your spouse, if you are not being that or doing that,
right. That's right.
Yeah, you shooting in the dark.
That's right. And let me tell you, that works. You doing the work. A lot of times men do not want to go to counseling. And I have told women, I was like, listen, this is what I want you to do. And 99% of the time when they do it, it works. I tell them, go to your husband and say, listen, honey, I spoke to a coach or a counselor today, or, me, whoever it is. And they told me so many things about myself and how I was not being a good spouse, whether it's a male or a female, right? I was not being a good spouse. And I really want to learn how to be a better wife to you or a better husband to you. Would you mind going to counseling? That takes the heat off of them. Like, oh, you just want me to go to counseling because something's wrong with me. They're looking like, oh, okay. Yeah, I'll go. Because you put it out there. You've taken accountability. You said, I talked to somebody. They showed me how I wasn't a good spouse to you. I know that I've treated you wrong. I want to be better. Will you go?
That's a whole different approach to wanting to go to counseling. Like if we're not discussing me. We're discussing now, mind you. You're going to get discussed.
Right. When we get there, you're going to get discussed.
You're going to get discussed at some point in time, especially if you come to us.
Right.
Because we are no respecters of persons.
Right.
Equal opportunities employer. Everybody can get it. If it's your time to get it, it's your time to get it.
Right.
Right.
But it works. Like, I mean, it works. Like the men will come like, okay. Right. So good one. Okay. So the next question. I saw you on Hardly Initiated and you mentioned, and you mentioned your husband pleasing you multiple times. I absolutely love my husband. He's a great father to our children, provides well for us, and we are intimate for the most part regularly. But it is not satisfying to me most times. He's climaxed and I'm left empty. He says it's because he's tired. Mind you, I work as well. How do I tell him in a way he will listen and not be offended?
You just put our business out in the street, didn't you? I'm out here in these streets. Pleasing folk and stuff, doing stuff. I don't know if I'm supposed to be talking about that. This is not for children. Okay. All right.
So how does she basically the long of short is she's not pleased, and he says he's tired, but she says, she works too. She's just as tired. And so he's not hearing that. I think that's just something that is hard for a man to process. Listen, that's why, one of the many reasons why guys, we should not have sex before marriage, because you think because you please that woman, that you could please.
She should be pleased.
Right. This one over here.
You didn't get yours?
Right. And that's not how it works. And a lot of times, man, you just getting on type of your wife doing your do it. You're not even asking her. You're not even inquiring, like, how does this feel?
But beyond that, you have not, like, I know your body. You cannot fake an orgasm with me. I know how your body responds orgasmically. So that's letting me know that he has not even taken the time to become as in tune as he needs to be to his wife's body. Right. And so it's unfortunate, but in my opinion, the way they need to move forward, they like, first of all, be vulnerable enough to have the conversation. Like she's going to have to find the place to not point the finger and say, you aren't pleasing me. Right? She, even in the moment, she might have to slow him down. She might have to, when she sees him revving up and them pumps getting a little more faster, like, like, do something, I want to say, divert his attention.
Yeah, redirect.
Redirect him. Get up and walk around and just walk around the bed looking all sultry and stuff. Like, do something. He might be like, well, what the hell are you doing?
Mm-hmm.
But what you're doing is he's about to bust. He's about to have an orgasm. That's bust is it's an African American term for ejaculation. He's about to bust, and if you don't have the ability the forethought to know this behavior, know how his body is responding, and then head him off at the pass, so to speak, then you equally as responsible. So you have to, unfortunately, you have to do this, but you love him. They sound like a loving couple who has this challenge in this area. Then also, this is what this is telling me. He is making an assumption that vaginal intercourse, penetration, is what gets her there. And they have not had a conversation, or she does not know that she might need more clitoral stimulation, right? If there is a miscue in communication from that perspective, she's not going to feel satisfied as a lover.
Yeah,
and he's going to come off as a selfish lover, but he's like, hey, there's an assumption that if a penis is inside of a vagina, pussy, and it's wet and it's hard, right? Right? Well, I just want to be real with people, right? If those conditions are present, then everybody should be enjoying themselves. But that's not the case.
Yeah, I think you guys should have you should have an honest conversation outside of the home, right? We always suggest that when
dinner,
when you guys, when you want to have serious conversations, get outside of your space, because it just helps to bring the person's defenses down. Go to dinner, get some ice cream, go get coffee, whatever, and share. This is how I feel. This is what I would like in the bedroom. What are your thoughts on that? Right? That's what you ask him, right? Don't tell him what he's doing wrong. Just have a conversation about, and then ask the questions like, how do you feel about our sex life? And see what he says. Right. And then hopefully those things will prompt questions from him about what you enjoy, where you are. But another thing that Shannon said that is key too, because there are questions that I have, right, that would help answer this better. Right. I don't know if he ejaculates quickly or whatever the case may be, but whatever it is going on, you control the narrative. Right? So don't just y'all doing the do and then it's over. When you see certain things, because you guys have been together for a while, I'm guessing. So patterns, right? In sex, we have this patterns.
Yeah, patterns.
Right? So you change it up. Like Shannon said, you slow him down. You gently push him off for you, or you get up off of him and do something different where the genitals are not in direct stimulation, right? If you want something he's not giving it to you, please just communicate to that. Don't be ashamed to say, honey, I really enjoy oral stimulation. Could you do that more? Whatever it is.
Or just saying like, oh, when you do that, it just drives me crazy.
Yes.
Oh, let's try this, honey. Don't say I watched anything.
One, babe.
Don't say I talked to my girlfriend. Say I read it in an article. Can we try this? Like, reading Cosmopolitan is not bad.
Right, it's not threatening.
But your girlfriend, talking to your girlfriend.
Right, you're going to be like, she don't know nothing. She ain't got no man. Right, yeah. Good point, babe. Great point.
Right?
All right, next question.
Good question.
Yeah, good question. Thank you for that. How do you deal with your in-laws who are tearing your marriage apart? They keep giving unsolicited advice telling my husband things I didn't say and questioning my parenting. And that's just a few things. Help, please, in all caps. I'm literally about to walk out. Well, honey.
How do you deal with in-laws?
You don't, because your in-laws aren't the problem. It's your husband. See, my husband would never allow my in-laws to do none of this. They would not be in our life before he would allow this. Your in-laws aren't the problem. They're being exactly who they are being. They are who they are. Your husband is not covering and protecting his family, and that's the problem. So the conversation is not with the in-laws. The conversation is with the husband.
And once again, you know, if the husband, if the in-laws are saying things that are lies, that needs to be addressed directly, and not your husband is over here having a conversation with his parents. No. Everybody needs to come together, and they need to, and you said that I said this. I never said that. Where did you get that from? We need to be more comfortable with confrontation. Confrontation is not a bad thing, but when people can have side conversations without accountability, that is a huge problem. And so it doesn't need to be adversarial. It don't need to be no fight. It doesn't need to, and it should be over a meal. And you've heard me emphasize a meal a couple of times during this podcast episode, because there's this thing called hypoglycemia that produces irritability, produces some not so good outcomes. And so that's why people have lunch when they're in the business sector, and they have lunch or they have meetings over lunch. It's right. So people's attention span can be there. People's irritability level is significant, is 0 to none. Like, you need to have these more serious conversations over a meal, right? But then have the conversation. If you don't have and it takes vulnerability, and you have to understand she has to be able to empathize with his parents, right? Although, yes, the husband has a definite responsibility to protect and defend her, right? But the wife has a responsibility to empathize. All they want is what's best for their son.
Or maybe not.
They don't want what's best for their son?
Listen, this is where boundaries come in. This is where you
boundaries
and I will
are important.
go different.
No, boundaries are important.
Right? This is where boundaries come in.
We're not different.
Based on what she said, this is a very unhealthy, these in-laws are unhealthy, based on what she said, in my opinion. Unhealthy people, I don't care if they're family, do not belong in your life. Period. The conversation that y'all need to have.
Don't belong in your marriage. It might be in your life, but not in your marriage.
Right, in your marriage, right? But sometimes in your life, if they are unhealthy, we keep keeping healthy people around, and it's hurting us. It doesn't serve you. Right? So y'all have to have enough courage. And listen, I don't know if that's going to happen, because if your husband is like, he's not stepping up to the plate when all this is happening, giving unsolicited advice. So clearly they're not giving the advice to you. They're giving it to him. And then he comes home and plays it out, and it's disrupting your marriage, right? Questioning your parenting. That's a conversation between you and them. If they're questioning your parenting with you, you shut that down. Stop feeding into that. We always feel like we have to defend ourselves. And then we get into these unhealthy conversations, and then it gets, you know what I'm saying, blown out of proportion. And now it's problems all through the family, every family member. You know what I'm saying? Like, you don't have to.
I'm going to tell you my concern. My concern is that completely shutting down, setting the boundaries, and setting a narrative for those types of conversations is what's important. What some people do is stop having the conversations and retreat. Not everything that I believe is not everything that her in-laws are saying is something wrong with it. There is some truth in what she's saying, what their in-laws are saying. And if there's any truth that can help add value, then you want to hear that information. You want that input so that you're not out there on an island trying to figure it out on your own. They clearly don't have an environment, right? A circle or a tribe of peers and mentee couples and mentor couples that they can go and take this information to. So they're coming to us. So a good majority of the information that they're getting about marriage and their family structure is from their in-laws. We need to guide that and create a healthy environment for that. But we don't want to cut it off, because when you cut off those types of relationships, now you're isolated. And now you're trying to figure it out by yourself. And that's a dangerous place to be as well.
Unless you have to cut it off. Sometimes,
unless you have to.
I'm sorry. Like, just sometimes.
Absolutely.
And the only thing, right, that made me say, because she said they keep giving unsolicited advice and questioning my parenting. I would then lean more on you, because I'm like, are you taking it personal? Like, are they giving you good advice and you feel like, oh, you're questioning my parenting? Even though, yes, unsolicited advice, it can affect us sometimes, but that's just based on your perspective, right? My mother gave me unsolicited advice all the time. You know what I'm saying? And because I know she's a wise woman, she knows what she's talking about. I was able to humble myself as a grown woman and sit at her feet and take her. You understand?
Yes, ma'am.
But it was the telling my husband things I didn't say.
Yeah,
so
that's lying. And you got to directly deal with that.
So, maybe it doesn't warrant cutting them out completely, but so I would say two things. Check yourself, right? Check to make sure you're not getting overly defensive and, offended and things of that nature. And then have the conversation with your husband, and you guys have a conversation with your in-laws.
Good stuff, Mom.
My wife and I sleep in different rooms. I didn't want it, and now I feel we are getting further and further away. What should I do? I really wish I had more information. Like, why are y'all sleeping in different rooms in the first place? Is it because of environment? Is it because you're, snoring, or, sometimes schedules coming in late and so it's waking me up? Is it because you guys are emotionally, context is so important, emotionally disconnected?
And then my question is your wife sleeping in a different room, or are you sleeping in a different room? Like, who is did the wife say, hey, I want you to sleep in the spare room, or you're not welcome here? Or did she create a cold environment that caused him to want to? Like, there's so much more context. I wish we could get more context on that. How can we get more context on that? Can we respond to them and get more context?
Yeah, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
But I would definitely, that takes open dialogue, right? If it's not because somebody did something wrong and there's an emotional connection, then I would say this: if you absolutely have to be in separate rooms, if you have to be, make sure you still stay connected, right? And even,
why would you have to be in separate rooms?
I'm saying because maybe somebody's such a light sleeper and their spouse works at night, like how you used to work, right? Gotcha. And you're coming in and it's waking me up. You snore. Somebody snores.
Right. So the snoring part, we need to have a sleep study. We need to be proactive about finding out. Like the work schedules, that's one thing. That's different, right? You coming in at a certain time, you're disrupting my sleep. Okay, I get that part. But snoring, for example, if somebody is snoring and that's the reason why, then we can do something about that. Right. There's something we can be proactive about that. But now, if it's something now on the emotional side of things, then that's a different, more in-depth conversation.
Yeah, and listen, and this is the thing: even when you're in the same room and you have emotional issues, you can be very disconnected. So imagine being in separate rooms. You're definitely Nah. You know what I'm saying? We're not even crossing paths, like brushing each other. You know what I'm saying? Like,
right.
It's just, so, I mean, what can you do about it? I would definitely seek counseling, seek therapy, because if you feel like you guys are getting more and more disconnected, your wife is feeling that as well.
Mm-hmm.
And if she hadn't broached you about it, then for whatever reason, I don't want to say she doesn't care, but for whatever reason, she's afraid to, broach the subject.
Right.
For whatever reason.
Right.
And so some things you guys just need a third party, but I would have a conversation with her, and acknowledge that, hey, babe, like we are growing further and further apart.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what are your thoughts? But do you feel this, and what do you think we should do about this?
Man, this communication is so important. It's
so important. Yeah.
We are afraid to have these conversations, and don't worry about dictating the narrative or having control of the narrative. Just simply have the conversation, ask the questions, and then be able to find, solutions. There's a lot of solutions out there. There's a lot of help out there.
It is. I mean,
but you gotta be very intentional about going out and getting it. All right. One more question.
That staying involved in each other's lives. When we talk about intimacy, that level of disconnection will completely break your intimacy.
Mm-hmm.
Completely. And that's why I don't suggest that people go in different rooms. Like, find others. So those of you who are in the same room with your spouse, and you may be thinking about it, think of something else.
Think of another response.
That ain't it.
That's good.
The last question. My husband and I were having a conversation that was very important. Then he just shuts down, which is typical. But he knows how important this is for us to talk about. He said I'm not a good communicator because I was telling him something he didn't want to hear. Please give us a better way to communicate.
Well, what is her husband doing?
Right, he's stonewalling.
He's stonewalling.
And the
question why he's stonewalling is more often than not, a very critical environment is being set up. Mm-hmm. So this conversation is probably fraught with you don't, mm-hmm. You always, you never,
you ain't this, you ain't that.
Right. So the husband, so stonewalling, so you understand, stonewalling is, the evidence of stonewalling is somebody just shutting down the conversation. Mm-hmm. I'm done, or just walking out, or they might not even announce that they're done. Mm-hmm. They might just leave, or they might still sit there in the same room with him, but you see that they have totally disconnected from you and the conversation, mm-hmm. right? That's called stonewalling, right? But what's really happening is the person is emotionally at their wit's end. Mm-hmm. They can't take anymore. They're done. Mm-hmm. They feel like, oh my God, if I say anything else, if I hear anything else, I'm going to lose my mind. Right? And so you need to allow your spouse, when they're in that state, you need to allow them space. Mm-hmm. Right? And that space is only for the purposes of decompressing that intense emotional space that they're in. They're in this intense emotional space. You want to provide some relief from that emotional tension. And the goal is to circle back now to the conversation and be a little free of that emotional tension.
Mm-hmm. And I would also, to take it a step further, like, to me, the first thing you should do is really assess your approach. Mm-hmm. Because that is what is causing
who should be assessing
the person who asked the question. Okay. What is your approach that is causing him to want to shut down? Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Like, that is important over everything. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And you can't you're looking at the behavior, but you're not looking at what caused the behavior. Mm-hmm. Right? His behavior is the shutting down, but why? He said, I'm not a good communicator. So what part of communicating are you not good in? Mm-hmm. Right? You got to be honest about that. Do you want to connect with your husband or not? Mm-hmm. If you do, stop with being defensive. Stop listening with an ear that will cause you to just shut down, and you think he's attacking you and he's attacking your character. And no, he's telling you he is the recipient of your behavior. Believe him when he says, honey, when you talk to me, all you do is just point your finger at me and blame me and tell me what I'm not doing. And like, that's not the type of conversation he's trying to have. It's just not. And that doesn't mean that you can't ever tell another human being what they're not doing right or what they're doing wrong.
Right.
But there's a way to do that where that person can just receive it.
Right.
It's just a way. So
that's good.
I'm sorry. It's just your approach. Your approach is just not, it's not reflective of something that's going to produce something healthy.
That's good. That's real good. Hey, listen, guys, this has been another exciting and informative, I believe, episode. Good questions. The people are sending in good questions.
They are. Guys, keep sending in your questions. And
we need you to go to at Marriage Inc. on Instagram and or in the comments in this video.
We probably should drop our email.
All right, let's do that. Let's do that.
That's just better than the DMs because yeah. And listen, please be patient, right? We can't do all the questions at once, but we're getting the questions. We have a list and we'll be doing them. Your question will come up in an episode.
And what will help frame some of your questions? Once again, like I said, when I was editing the book, Wife You, it really opened my eyes to who you are as a wife and the frame of mind that you are in. Sometimes you have to step back and get some different perspective. And I think it's a shameless plug, but it's a necessary plug. I think Wife You, actually reading it will help to formulate, because we're all trying to figure it out. But this will help formulate questions that you can ask yourself and even ask your spouse. Hey, honey, how am I in this area? I know in the exercises, after each chapter,
I give homework.
You are giving homework, but you are also having them journal and ask some really, really tough questions that will help them navigate. So they might even get to a point where they don't even have to ask a question because they're like, I don't do that. And I need to start doing that.
And listen, I wrote this book based off of so many years of talking to men and seeing the common denominators of things that are important to them, principles, relationship principles that are important to them and what they're looking for in a woman. And so, for the men, if you want your wife to understand you better, to come from somebody else, because sometimes when you say it, we're not listening, and vice versa, right? So get the book for your lady. And ladies, if you want to understand how to deal with your man better, some things he said will resonate in what I wrote. And you'll see why, because I also explain why it's important to them as well. Like their view, not just this is the thing that's important, but I break it down to help give clear understanding.
Oh, outstanding. All right, guys, listen. Thank you for joining us for another episode of My Marriage is Dope podcast. You can check us out on all platforms, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, at Marriage Inc. You can also go to our website, which is who says that anymore? Which is marriageinc.us. And just tap in with us, and we appreciate you guys. Make sure you are subscribing to this YouTube channel.
And listen,
Marriage
share it
Inc.
with your
TV.
people. Please share. Please share.
Share. Sharing is caring, right? We love you guys. Peace and blessings.